Hello! Hello!
Hello. All right, wonderful people. Welcome to
Hello.
our interview show called Highlight Heroes, where we paint minis and talk to amazing members of our D&D community. And today, we have the fantastic Weston, our Arcaneanthems himself, the man who brings music to our community all the time. So thank you, sir. Do you want to share a little bit about your social and all that stuff really quick before we get going?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Weston, also known as Arcaneanthems. I go by Weston. If you call me Arcaneanthems in public, that would be kind of weird. Uh, but my socials, I'm Arcaneanthems everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and most importantly, Patreon. So if you like free music and you want to support me making free music for the community, please support me on my Patreon. There's lots of really great rewards there for people who do, including like loops that you can like make your own versions of the songs. And there's another like tier where you actually get the MIDI files, so you can take all the notes and add your own instruments to them. There's all sorts of great stuff on the Patreon. So you can also go there to download free music, and just had all my music released on Apple Music, Spotify, and so forth. So you can just hop on there and use those tunes as well. No royalties. Apple Music and Spotify don't know that, so they'll still be paying me if you're listening. But you don't have to pay, and it's just an easier way to access those songs.
That's such a huge thing that you're doing for this
Yeah.
community, man. Like, honestly, we're lucky.
Music is powerful, and like I've always wanted everyone to have access to it. And I know that I've been blessed in like my entire growing up with music in my life. And this is something that I've always wanted to do, is write more like instrumental type classical fantasy music that's big, and big or small or whatever the occasion requires for your games, because we know what it feels like to go in. I don't know if anybody has ever watched Cloverfield or not. Who's ever seen Cloverfield?
The movie?
That movie has no music until the very, very end credits, and it's a really unique experience. But we know the emotion that music brings. We know the immersion that music brings. We know how it helps us pay attention in our games. So I wanted to provide that for people.
Man, well, thank you. All right, so we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the painting show in a second, but first, announcements. So we at the Welcome Inn support BLM, Black Lives Matters movements. We are asking our wonderful community members to support those movements if they can. There is a big yellow donate button a little further down on the About page. And if you go ahead and scroll down and click on that button, you will be taken to a list of various charities that you can take a look into and consider donating to. We'd very much appreciate it. Other than that, I think, Parker, you're up.
Yeah, so let's talk scheduling. So you guys can find our schedule posted every week on our Instagram. So find us on social media. We're doing a lot of stuff on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram. But this week, we started off with Highlight Heroes, where you are right now. And then join us again on Friday at 7 p.m. for our weekly campaign Rolling Tides. And 6 p.m. on Saturday for our weekly campaign Conundrum Company. Those are our two weekly campaigns that are here all the time. And then we have Sunday, a very special one-shot series that we call Cosplay Ground, where we have cosplayers dress up as the characters that they are playing. So we have a Disney-inspired one that will be this Sunday at 6 p.m. All of those times are Eastern. So you guys can find us on social media if you need any reminders there, but hopefully we'll see you.
Speaking of social media, please check out our social media channels. Parker does a ton of work on our Instagram and features like various individuals from the campaigns and from the community there. Sarah is nailing Twitter. It's got all kinds of crazy quotes from our campaigns that are just absolutely hilarious. And Sean has been working his butt off on making YouTube have everything within 3 days of us completing a video. They're up on VOD on YouTube. So we'd love for you guys to head over there as well, take a look at that. They're fantastic. And last but not least, before we get into everything, thank you to all of our mods, specifically Pins, Azur, and John, for the amount of effort you guys are putting into. They're in the chat right now. Give them some love. Literally, we logged on to start prepping for the show, and Azur and Pins were running technical checks, and we could see the feed going, and we were talking about how awesome it is to have such an involved community. You guys are great. Thank you. So, with that, let's do some interviewing stuff.
Ooh.
And we're going to start with showing off the minis we've selected today. Weston, you're the guest of honor, so what do you got for us?
Huzzah! All right, so it's hard to see.
Ooh.
I've selected a little monk. So this is a looks like a female or long-haired monk with a bow staff, and I think I'm gonna do like a kind of a teal blue on pants, and then more like a pinkish kind of ombre going down, kind of her side robes. So I think that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So what is your you've got like you said ombre, you've got the vernacular down. Do you have some experience mini painting?
Yes.
How much?
I started painting minis when I got a game called Mice and Mystics, and it's basically a game with these little mice, and it's kind of like it's called an RPG in a box is really what it is, and it's a board game / role playing type game, and one of my favorite games ever. And I painted all those rats and spiders and all those different things using dry brushing, and that was my first kind of introduction into it. And since then, I've painted all sorts of things. Nothing too big. And yeah, so I've done a little bit of mini painting. I've been painting for a couple of years now. I don't do it that often, but I think the techniques stick around. It's kind of like riding a bike.
That's very true. It's hard to forget. Parker, what do you got today?
I'm painting a little pseudo dragon. I came in a set of 2, so I'll be painting one that looks like Ashi from our Conundrum Company campaign.
And I, because I copy everything Parker does, am going to paint Ashi's close companion and other pseudo-dragon from that very same campaign, Bims. So, for all intents and purposes today, I am Parker, because Parker always paints Bims, and it's perfect. All right. With that started, we don't need to do tips and tricks. Oh, here's my tip and trick for you guys today. Because Parker and I were talking about it earlier. Did you see this little stick here? I don't remember if I've ever talked about this before, but you can see there's a stake glued to the base of this mini. This mini has a very small base. It's actually, Parker pointed out earlier, a series of stacked books, and it's tiny. So what I do personally, and you could do this anywhere, is a lot of like 3D printers come with spools of the plastic for it. You can literally cut that. You can see this still has the curve to it, and just super glue it to the base, and then just cut it right off at the end. Just make sure you're putting it at a point where you aren't going to be needing to apply paint, so this will be base down, and then you just have a little something to hold on to. I know, that's a really complex, mind-blowing tip that I've just provided you all with here. But it's definitely worth it. Yeah, fancy toothpick. All right, let's talk about stuff and things.
I use this. I use tacky tack.
That's a good stuff.
Oh, that's a smart idea.
And I just I put it right into a cork.
And you do that, you're less prone to like gluing your fingers together, which is what I constantly do. So much smarter than me. See, do what Weston does.
Oh my goodness.
Sometimes you interview amazing people, and sometimes you interview me.
Same thing.
Clearly amazing you are. You're
Same thing. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I think it's my question, right? So, very simple question to begin with. How did you get into D&D?
Oh, that's a great question. So I started. I was on Imager for I don't know 5 or 6 years ago. Do you guys ever used Imager at all? It's kind of like Reddit's like picture cousin. So I was on Imager, and I saw this post about these voice actors who were playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I've always liked voice acting. I've always thought it was really cool. So I checked it out. They had done like 23 episodes or something, and at the time I was I had been watching some like board game shows, and this is when I was painting minis for Mice and Mystics, and I was like, oh, that'd be something interesting to do. And I honestly, in my head, I was thinking, oh, I'm not that big of a nerd. Like that's what I was thinking. I'm not that big of a nerd to play Dungeons and Dragons, but let me check it out because this person's really raving about it. So I checked it out, and it was Critical Role, and I caught it when they first started. Like I said, episode 20, and I was immediately hooked. And from that point forward, I have this gaming board group, and I said, okay, here's Mice and Mystics. if you guys want to like do some more intense stuff, we could always play Dungeons and Dragons. And I heard the moaning and like the what? Are you like? Oh, are you kidding me? 6 years later, they're all just as obsessed as I am. So I actually started as a DM playing Dungeons and Dragons, which was wild. Yeah.
So big question there. Are you still playing together with the same folks from 6 years ago?
We're doing the same campaign.
Whoa!
Yeah.
That's amazing!
That's dedication.
Yeah, we're actually in the same campaign. Several of their characters have died, so they've had to reroll characters, but it's the same storyline, same campaign. They've been like going through this homebrew world of mine, exploring. Right now, they had Grisat, the Prince of Darkness, take over a town. So they're trying to, or not the town, take over like this metropolis. So they're trying to get that back. But it's just been an absolute blast.
That is so. I mean, it's rare that you get to hear about a group that's been playing together the same campaign for 6 years. That is absolutely a mind-boggling.
So much fun. So much fun.
Sarah just said in chat she wants to be you when she grows up, and I
Agreed.
I mimic that statement. So, with all of this time now playing D&D and DMing and being familiar with D&D, what's your favorite class to play?
My favorite class to play is probably Battlemaster Fighter. I love maneuvers. I think they're so much fun. I love superiority dice. It's just like my favorite way to mess with my DM and constantly keep them on their toes. So yeah, using the superiority dice is a ton of fun. Being able to like reach an enemy I shouldn't be able to reach, being able to get out of a way, parry an attack that I shouldn't be able to parry, increase my AC, like just constantly messing with my DM. If you add the luck feat on top of that, then you're just an absolute monster, and you're a total pain to deal with. And I think the reason I like that is that a lot of people think that fighter class is so like basic, and it really doesn't have to be. Like you can play it in a way that it feels complex and interesting, and the way you describe your attacks can be much more engaging as opposed to I'm going to swing my sword. Like I like to take it and I like to say exactly what my attacks are going to look like, and how they're what I'm trying to do to impact the enemy and all these different things. So yeah, I love Battlemaster Fighters. I think they're just so much fun.
You are a person of refined tastes, and I agree with you wholeheartedly regarding the fighter class, and that it does not get the credit it deserves.
It does not.
It's all about what you bring to the table with the fighter class. You are absolutely right.
There.
Ha! Because table. Ooh.
Oh
puns.
yeah.
We're good.
Them puns though.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so favorite classes out of the way. What is your favorite race to play? Do you have one?
I've answered this before. My favorite race is monstrous classes. So I love minotaurs. I love kobolds. I love Aarakocra. I love what else? Yeah, so monstrous classes. I think they're a lot of fun. They're really fun to role play. One of my favorite things with my Aarakocra warlock that I did was I took away its flight.
Oh.
And that was the price that he paid to get his magic. Because this Fae wanted to see if a bird could survive without its wings. So eventually he got his flight back, as he, got more and more kind of kills under his belt. Every time he got a kill, a feather would turn purple until he was a fully like purple bird. It was just I just love like what you can do with these monstrous races, because they come from like very different backgrounds than somebody, a dwarf would, or an elf would, or a gnome would. They come from like these very primitive backgrounds. So that was really fun, and it's just fun to talk like a bird. So,
That's good.
I have lots of fun with that.
So this is the part of the show where I have to ask you to do something for me. You don't have to believe it,
right.
But I'd like you to just say, lean into the microphone and just with real convincing kind of tone, just tell the viewers that dwarves are actually the best race in Dungeons and Dragons. It's a weird thing. We didn't tell you about this. I'm sorry.
Dwarves are the best class in Dungeons and Dragons. Or best race, actually. I actually play a dwarf in my podcast that I'm in. If you guys haven't heard it, it's called Knights of the Rolled Table. It's pretty fun.
Oh.
I play a dwarf barbarian named Coach, and he is exactly like he sounds. He believes in hard work, and that every person deserves a chance to prove themselves. He's a lot of fun.
I don't know if you're seeing me fall in love with this character right now, but it's literally
it's
happening.
Also, that was amazing. I just had a breakthrough as far as mini painting. Hi everyone, I'm here to feel like,
Hey Parker.
I'm the amateur person.
This show's about me.
So I've actually never realized this. I hate how hard it is to keep these Citadel paint things open, but if you pull it far back enough, it has a little thing that keeps it open. Guess what? I've been painting for weeks now. Never realized that was a thing.
That's cool.
It's the little things.
Yeah. So, good job, guys. If anybody else had ever done that, now you cannot feel stupid. I've done that.
That's
a
Parker Pro tip.
Parker Pro tip.
Parker Pro tip.
I'm learning.
Oh, that's so good. Okay, so you've told us about your favorite class to play. Are there any classes you haven't tried yet and you'd like to try next? Anything on your to-do list?
A class I've never played a druid.
Oh.
Which is wild. I know. And like they have like wild shape, and they have like the most insane spell list, and they have all these different things, but I've just never played one. I've played pretty much every other class though, but I've never played a druid for whatever reason. Yeah, it is what it is.
We'll get you there one day, right?
Honestly,
there's only 14 classes, so
I have a newfound love for druids.
Oh yeah,
I had never played one until recently.
They're a fantastic class.
So much utility.
For sure.
So much tank.
Well, it's just they're just mean. Like they definitely fall under that DM's nightmare kind of class, where they're just cruel because you can't kill them. Like how do you deal? How do you deal with this beast that has like an extra 55 hit points on top of their normal? Like it's just I don't.
It's unbearable how much damage they can take.
It's crazy.
You get a druid like Morton who uses their wild shape for ridiculous things, and then you let them go into battle.
Yeah, I think Sean's used his druid for combat like once or twice, his wild shapes. He uses them mostly for trolling me.
Yep.
Perfect. Beautiful.
But then they just have a ton of spells. So so they're still just fine.
Oh yeah, they're golden.
Yeah.
Is there a race that you haven't played that you want to try?
Oh, there's so many races.
What do you want to play next?
Next, I want to play. I last Christmas I played a Warforged, and that was a lot of fun. That was right near around when the Eberron stuff came out. I played a toy soldier, which was pretty cool for a Christmas episode.
It's adorable.
So cute.
And then one that I want to play, I haven't actually played the I haven't played the Goblin race yet, which they look really interesting.
Ton of fun.
Oh, the Shatter Kai. I've always wanted to play a Shatter Kai, and I have never played a Shatter Kai. That was
Did you just play one?
I just played one with Parker, and he is just the edgiest boy on the planet.
Oh, so edgy.
Yeah.
Oh, I braided flowers in his hair.
She did. It was beautiful. It was a masterpiece.
It was a very cute little gnome druid.
Yes. Oh.
I always thought like playing like a Shatter Kai like Blood Hunter would just be like the most edgy, edgy
boy?
edge.
A broody boy.
Just so my gosh. I don't even know how you would reconcile that much angst in one person.
You need a small gnomish druid companion who braids your hair.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all you got. You just have to balance that, the extreme edge and the extreme softness.
Yeah, cut the edge with a little sweet, and you're golden, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, Shadowkai, they're really interesting.
Their lore
like,
is fantastic.
Really unique backstories. Them and the what's the astral plane ones?
Oh, I don't.
They look like aliens.
Oh, the
Right, and their name.
I just looked at that.
Totally escaping me right now.
Not some. Not semic hybrids, not Kalashtar.
Nope.
Yeah, because I was like that, and I was like, that's not it. Oh man, somebody in the chat's gonna.
Yeah, chat'll. Oh, Vedelkin.
Aha, they did.
Thank you, chat. Thank you, Zer. Yes.
Thank you.
Those are the ones.
There's so many. Like, people are asking me to do. Like, I'm trying to figure out what. Like, I just finished all the parody videos for the classes.
They're so good.
So now I'm wanting to move on to something else. And people are like, do races next. I was like, there's like 40 races. We're going to be here forever. Which I guess
it's a really long
point,
series.
Right?
Yeah. Perfect.
It's just races for the next 8 years. Just doing videos.
We have plenty of time to figure out what the next series will be.
Right.
Give you all that time. That's awesome. Well, okay.
Yeah, Shadowkai is probably next.
That's a good choice. So, with your experience in D&D, what's your least favorite class to play?
Ranger. Unfortunately, like, despite me, like, really, like, being Rangers, like advocate, they're just not as much fun. I hate that the fighter class can do pretty much everything that the Ranger class can do, but better. Like, the Ranger class is so heavily geared toward RP in a very specific setting that it gets hamstrung, like, in all of its other abilities, which is so sad to me because, like, there's a lot of promise there. But yeah, so probably Ranger is probably my least favorite to play, just because I'm always feeling like I could have done more to help my party if I was a fighter, and that's not a good feeling.
I feel like we need to, like, go back and watch all the episodes because I feel like it's been Sorcerer and Ranger have been our, like, two go-to answers to this question.
Yeah,
it's a valid answer too. There's some tuning that needs to be done with the Ranger, I think.
Well, and the Unearthed Arcana Ranger that came out was like the most overpowered, insane, like, unfun revision, where we had one on the podcast, and he just, like, would straight up do like 60 points of damage to something that was 300 meters away, and I'm like, that's not like. That's like plugging in the Game Genie, and that's some unfun stuff right there.
Yeah, they kind of overcompensated the opposite direction.
Yeah, they did, which was unfortunate.
I know. I watch Parker shed a tear every time.
Fine.
I know. I'm sorry. It's just.
I know it's not great. It's just that
it's a mechanical thing. That's all it is. They need to fix the mechanics.
The fluff is amazing.
It's fine.
Yeah, like I love the idea of, like, having a favorite enemy, but that's, like, Blood Hunter does it better. Like it just does. Like, it's much more interesting from the Blood Hunter class, in my opinion. So, like, if you're gonna want to, kill something specific, then be a Blood Hunter. Like, that's so much more fun and so much more mechanically interesting.
Until you accidentally kill yourself.
That's what makes it so fun.
That's true.
I know, I'm
Do you
weird
have
like that.
a least favorite race to play?
Dwarfs.
Oh!
He's coming!
Hot take.
He came
Hot
for
take.
both of us.
And I play a dwarf. I played a dwarf, like I said, on the podcast for a very, very long time.
Okay.
And mechanically, I see, like, they're very good. Like, they're just solid and strong and like, resistant to poison. Like, they have so much going for them. But I just don't find, like, their lore that interesting.
My poor heart.
You're killing. God. I don't.
I just don't.
You're valid in your opinion. You really are. I get it.
I just their lore and like their family structure, it doesn't scream interesting to me. It just seems very like normal. Like gnomes are really like weird and like fun because
I
they're
do
very
love gnomes.
quirky.
Mhm.
Dwarves aren't quirky. They're just kind of stoic. They dig, and like that's why I made coach. Like they do. That's like they're rich. They have good craftsmen. Like that's. But like it's not like interesting craftsmen. It's like, hey, we built this monument. We built this statue. It like gnomes are like, oh, I built this crazy contraption that has all these gears and all these wires, and it's.
That's fair. That's all fair.
And that was the last time Weston was ever invited.
Here's the plan. Here's what we do, guys.
I'll be the first one to be kicked out of the welcome in.
Never. All dwarf one shot. Weston is the first person invited. Guaranteed 100%, 10 out of 10.
Absolutely.
That's that's absolutely fair, Weston. I respect that opinion as much as it breaks my tiny heart.
Not everybody can love dwarves the way that Josh loves dwarves.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm more of like a monstrous race.
Mm-hmm.
I like to kind of be too like going after the ultra unique nonsense. But like I said, I chose to play a dwarf because I wanted to learn how to kind of love that race.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it didn't work or
You're still learning.
I love the character I created because he was just kind of this kind of dad type character.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really fun. He was like kind of a middle-aged, already kind of lived a life, and now he's off on an adventure. But I just think the dwarf society is a little bit stale. Needs to be shaken up.
Fair.
That is fair points all around.
Now, quick, let's move along before I break into tears.
Yep. You hurt, Josh.
Am I up?
You are.
Okay. Are we on the content creation question?
We are.
Cool. Hey, I'm so broken by this dwarf hate.
I know. It's okay.
I don't hate them.
I know you don't. I know you. I'm just teasing you, buddy. Oh my god. Okay, so how did you get into content creation? Like, you're an influencer. You're in TikTok. You're doing podcasts. What was the impetus of that?
I was in a rock band for 10 years, and I love that. Like, I love being on stage. I love being in front of people. I love singing. I love making music. Music is a like really healthy drug for me. Like whenever I'm composing, I get the chills. I feel like I'm the whole idea of creating something out of nothing is my favorite. I love that we can take something that is empty and vapid and turn it into something amazing. Like that is the greatest thing about storytelling for me about Dungeons and Dragons is we can sit together at a table, you know, theoretically with zero, with nothing, and within an hour we can discover things, and they come out of us. Like that is the coolest thing that humanity does, and that's why I like making music, because I can sit down to my application and I can just start singing, and I can start plucking out a melody, and then I can add to it and add to it and add to it and add to it, and then it becomes this epic tale in musical form. So I think it's that drive of creation, and then it's that drive of connection that I also love. The reason I liked being on stage was looking down and seeing people connecting, singing along to the songs that I wrote, because I don't feel like I'm that easy of a person to connect with, because I don't feel very competent when it comes to like building new relationships. So I've used my creative side to be understood. I use my music so that people know that there's something beyond just the surface of me, a guy with silly hair and glasses. Like that's like I want people to know, like, hey, there's more there. anyway.
That's
so like
beautiful.
It has everything to do with creation and connection, and that's why on my Patreon I like to give my patrons I like to gain inspiration from them. I have a whole channel on my Discord called Anthem Ideas, and people will leave me ideas for the next anthems that I write, so that I can connect with them and I can bring it to them and say, like, here is what you inspired me to create. And that's where that connection piece comes in. It's one of my favorite things to do. So I'm always reaching out to people. I try and reach out to creators because I like to connect. Yeah.
That says so much because, traditionally D&D has been the game of individuals who are not necessarily the best at connecting, and we're working out of some stereotypes, and there are some negatives that come along with that, but there's also there's something truly beautiful about that statement that you can create, just like with music, a connection with people. That's really impressive. Wow.
And I think with the pandemic and not being able to see people in the same way, it's been really hard for me, because like I said, I'm all about that connection, and it's much easier to connect with people when they're in your dining room than it is when they're on camera. Not to say that you can't, because a lot of people do a really good job of it, but I think I love having people in my home to play D&D and to experiment and do silly voices and learn from each other and connect with one another in that way. It means a lot to me.
Talk like Patrick Warburton or whatever with the dwarf.
Yeah, exactly. Just like that.
Perfection.
So our very last question, so chat, start thinking about questions you would like to ask Weston. Our last question is kind of just for you to tell us about your journey with music in the D&D community. So obviously you said you were in a band. You said that obviously this music stuff happened way before you figured out that you were in love with D&D. So kind of how did you make that transition to making music into doing Patreon and everything like that?
So I had a character die in a campaign, and for some reason it hit me kind of hard, and I stayed up late, and I heard something, and I kind of followed that inspiration to where it led me, which was on my computer, and I stayed up till about 2 a.m. writing this song about this character, and it was just instrumental, but I kept doing it. And I kept thinking about the characters in my campaign, and I wrote an anthem for each one of them. And then I thought, I wonder if anybody else wants, if anybody else would want an anthem for their character. Because, Darth Vader has an anthem, and Harry Potter has an anthem, and the Avengers have anthems, and heroes have anthems, and we create heroes, so why don't our heroes have anthems? So that's kind of where it got started, and I started up this, at the time it was called Make My Anthem, and now it's Arcaneanthems. But it's this idea of, again, connecting with people and allowing them to have a anthem for their character or for their campaign. And now I'm doing more music for everyone because I want everyone to have it. People still ask me if I do commissions, and I do them on occasion, but they take so much time that I have to be very careful about how many commissions I do at a time. So I don't advertise that, because it takes a while to get commissions done. So I prefer to make songs that everybody can use, and obviously I'm not going to use somebody's commission, and give it away,
right,
to everybody, without that person's permission or whatever. So I try and spend my time to get a diverse number of songs to the community. Does that answer the question? I completely forget what the question was.
Yeah, it did. It did.
It was
for sure.
So bardic, your answer too, discussing the imagery you created with the being drawn to your computer to write about that character that you lost. That's
It was really good.
Over dramatic is something that I definitely am. So
D&D. Perfect. Okay, so
Right.
I am actually at a stopping place on my mini. So Josh, continue to. Okay, Azure, I don't remember saying that quote, but I'm really excited that you remember it. I think I said music is emotion, emotion is connection. Don't remember when I said that.
Ooh, I like that.
Okay, Vault of Villains has a question. Do I need to ask my weekly question or just add it to the usuals? But if you could play as any monster in D&D as a character, which would it be and why? I think you being monsters race inclined would be interesting for this. So what's a monster you would want to play as a playable race?
Good question.
I know.
I think something like a. Let's see here.
This one
I was gonna
always
say
get
I was gonna say Minotaur, but it I think they've recently added that. Like,
yeah,
officially.
it's in Theros.
Yeah. So like that was always my go-to, was Minotaur, but now they actually created it. So I'm like, who else? Tree Blight.
Really?
No, that's no way. No, that's a great question. Like I said, well, because I always said Minotaur. Minotaur was always my go-to. I even played one in the podcast and loved it. Loved it. Gosh. Oh, you know what would be fun? A Slod. I think a Slod would be a lot of fun.
Okay, yeah.
To be a playable race, like in the in the astral plane. I think that'd be really wild. Or some of the demons. If you had like a demonic campaign and you played like a Cambion or like something like that would be really interesting.
That's good. That would be incredible.
Azure wants to know what has been an unforgettable moment for you in game, something that you remember for years.
One of my favorite memories in D&D was I brought a new player in, and he had created this character, and this was his first session. He's a cleric. The party didn't have a cleric up until this point, and this was like they've been playing for 2 years, and one of their characters had died. So he decided to be a cleric, and he comes into our campaign. Within, I think, an hour and a half, he was level 4, level 5 or something. In an hour and a half, I dealt 32 points of environmental damage to him due to like him failing saves, and like he's like wasting all of his spell slots. They haven't even fought anything yet.
Oh no!
Falling down wells and getting like dropping into pools of like cold water, and like it's just nuts. So that was one of my like funniest moments when he just like is what is happening? Why am I like dying? We haven't even seen an enemy yet. That was one of my favorite moments. Another one was on the podcast where the podcast is full of a bunch of like improvers who do like improv games, and so they're hilarious. They're the funniest people I've ever met. And they all went off about how our warlock got her powers, which was just a bunch of squirrels doing song and dance. And they did this for like, I don't know, like 5 minutes of song and dance about these squirrels, like, interacting with her and talking to Titania. And like, it was the most redonkulous bit of time that I've ever had in D&D, where everybody was acting like plants and squirrels and doing this whole song and dance. So that was pretty funny.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Let's see. Okay, so Azure asks again, how outside of the actual game has D&D changed your life or touched you the most?
Yeah, it's completely changed my career path. It's given me an opportunity to do music for a living, which is so powerful to me, because I was good at making rock music and being on stage, and I felt very confident, and I loved being up there. But like, it's hard. It's hard to be away from your family. It's hard to to live that life, and I knew that I couldn't like hack it, you know. So this has given me an opportunity to literally live my dream, make music at home, be with my family, and support a community that I love. Like that's everything. So this community has given me everything. Dungeons and Dragons has given me everything. And I don't say that as a cliche point. I truly mean it. It's I think it surprised my wife how big of a nerd I was. I'm glad I married her before I started playing D&D.
What was that like? She thought she was marrying like a rock star, and then
yeah, she did.
Surprise!
And then all of a sudden, I just turned out to be a giant nerd.
The best plot twist.
That's an upgrade, if you ask me. Just saying.
Upgrades, people.
Upgrades.
Fallen Dan asks, if you could add one rule to D&D, what rule would you add and why?
Ooh.
Is there something you do in your home games that isn't in the books?
They need to figure out a death system that makes sense. So like the death saving throws and everything is fine, but bringing back people from the dead needs to have more like consequences. Like it doesn't. I'm like, oh, you lost like 500 gold, like big deal, you know, like revivify, or like it just doesn't. It's too hard. Like one, I think it's too hard to die in 5e with certain spells like Healing Word that you can literally like bring people back from the brink of death from across the like. It just seems like too much. I just think there's not enough consequences in 5e. So I try and do that in my own games, and then they also need to fix hit points. Hit points are like I just feel like are one of the most outdated. I realize that it's simple, but from a roleplay perspective, it really adds some like really like undesirable take me out of immersion type moments. Where, you know, and I've seen some like, you know, some people talk about how to fix it, but like maybe we switch to like an exhaustion system, or like a you know, something that makes more sense than, oh, I got shot with an arrow through my shoulder, I'm gonna keep swinging at this fool. Like that just doesn't make any sense to me. And like it hurts my brain to think that is a thing, you know. So I wish that there was a more roleplay centric approach to it, where, you know, when you quote unquote take damage, really you're just becoming more and more exhausted, or you're using up your wealth of luck or whatever it is, until you just pass out from exhaustion or blood loss or whatever it was. Because then it would make more sense to me, you know, you get shot with an arrow and you use your HP to not die from that attack. Like that kind of mentality, I think, would help the game feel more immersive in combat.
So kind of turning the different types of damage on its head in a weird way as well. Like, you know, instead of psychic damage, bludgeoning damage, piercing damage, all hitting the same pool of generic whatever, like the implications are different. That's interesting.
Yeah, so like you would use your hit points to negate certain damage. And then once your, you know, hit points are, you know, whatever, getting very, very low, then you start to see the physical effects of that. You know, the arrows actually start to hit you, and you know, you're really starting to stagger.
Yeah, and we've seen a couple. This is a plug for Sarah's show. We've seen a couple of those like better death mechanics and stress mechanics and trauma in Roundtable already.
Cool.
So there are different ways to handle it. It would be much better for D&D. Volta Villains asked, we've all seen your amazing TikToks. What song has been the most fun to write and that you're most proud of?
That's a great question.
Oh man,
what a question!
Yeah, choose from your babies.
The Artificer song was really fun to write. That song, I did a parody version of Stronger that Kanye West did, and that one was just super fun because I got to like sing / rap. There was like a lot of words that went into it. The Rogue song was also a lot of fun. That was Believer by Imagine Dragons, because I love Imagine Dragons. Yeah, those are probably my top two. And like I said, I have a rock music background, so anything that kind of gets me angsty and angry, like that's the
Huh,
music I like to
valid.
write.
Give me that.
Blood Hunter again was also one of my favorites, just because it's just angsty and you know it makes you feel mean singing it, which I like.
The emotion.
Yeah.
This is an interesting username. Harbinger of Rats
Oh,
would
Harbinger
like
of
to
Rats.
know, is there a system outside of D&D that you particularly enjoy? If not, is there a system you would like to try out in the future?
good question.
Yeah, I think that the Pathfinder version 2 is really good.
It is
And
good.
it allows for a lot of customability, and it's not as like lawyery as Pathfinder, first edition is, but it still allows for a lot of customization in your characters. I think they really nailed that. There are other things about Pathfinder that I don't like as much, and I like D&D more for, but Pathfinder is a really good system for people who enjoy combat. It's just, for me, it doesn't have the elements of randomness that I really like. While I do consider myself kind of a rule lawyer, I just do. I try and be nice about it. But I love rules because they provide fairness, and I think being a fair DM is super important. To the believability of your game, and so that your game feels like it has consequences and it has uh, weight to it. I had a point. While I do feel that way, I also am not actually a huge planner. Like, I don't plan a ton of stuff. Like, I'm not an over planner at all. I like things to be done in the moment. So Pathfinder, to me, I feel like you have to do so much planning to build your character in the way that is most essential, or else you're gonna just die.
Yeah.
And that's not fun either, for me anyway. I do like that element of randomness. It's the same reason that I like watching college sports as opposed to professional sports, because I think the mistakes and the amateurishness of it makes it much more fun and much more interesting. If that makes sense.
That makes total sense. It's a weird trade-off with Pathfinder. I know exactly what you're talking about, where you get this very well-structured rule system to do incredibly amazing things that are well-flavored and thought out.
Yep.
But that is inherently limiting in and of itself in a weird way. And you have to kind of weigh the two against each other, because they're two very different experiences.
Yeah, and I think that D&D could do a good job of making classes feel that way. So you could have your maybe you have classes that feel more basic and that are easier to pick up, and then you have classes that feel more intense and that have more combinations, so that you can kind of help both those player bases. Or maybe you have versions of classes that are more intense, or easier to play.
Yeah,
So,
adjusting your subclass, so to speak, to...
yeah, exactly, to kind of fit the type of playstyle that you want.
Azure wants to know, what's your approach to starting to write something? Songs, stories, or any other creative type? What's your approach?
I really, for me, it starts with inspiration. So I want to know, whenever I write an anthem, I always think, what 3 adjectives do I want this song to feel like? Or, who am I writing this song for? And that's why I like my Patreon community so much, is that they provide me these amazingly cool ideas. One of my favorites was somebody who said, "Hey, I have a dwarven king that just died." And I imagined what it would be like in a dwarven city. Like, what types of instruments would there be in a dwarven city that would signal the death of a king? And so I imagined these massive strings that go throughout the entirety of the city and let off this low vibrational tones. And I wrote a song around that called Death of the Underking, or Death March of the Underking. So this idea of these very visceral things that I can see in my head, and then I imagine how that could happen, or what's a unique way to make that sound. So for me, it starts again with that connection idea, that inspiration idea. And for me, it's all about how do I tell a story with the songs that I write? What story am I trying to tell here?
That is so good. I will be headed back to your Patreon in a little bit to find that song.
Death March of the Underking.
Ooh.
I'm gonna probably say this name wrong. Helheim Hound? Maybe I didn't. Question. What's your favorite magical item in D&D? Armor, weapons, random artifacts, anything.
Favorite magical item. So one of the things that I do worst in D&D, or the thing that freaks me out the most, is items. Trying to figure out like treasure and like that, I usually leave it up to randomness because I just don't want to think about it. Like I have tons of random tables that I usually draw from. I prefer creating my own magical items if they're like going to become like story important. I'll just create them myself because I know the things that are going to be the most valuable in my campaigns. But I tend to go for magical items that promote randomness. Like I love the Deck of Many Things. I think it's one of the coolest, most like feared. I love the randomness in it. I love that it can, just make your life so good, or it can just absolutely destroy you. I love randomness in that way. I love the robe of useful items that just has like all this stuff on it, and then they can kind of use it. I created a bardic sword once, where I would actually have my player sing notes, and he had a tuner in front of him, and he'd just sing a note, and whatever note he sang, it would add a certain elemental flair to his strike. And he didn't have perfect pitch. So it made it really interesting where if he's saying like an A, okay, here's, this is going to have the enemy has to roll a saving throw. This is the ice damage, and they'll be restrained if they, don't pass their save. So like each ability in that sword could do different things, and he just had to, sing as he swung, and then whatever happened. So I love elements of randomness. I think they're really fun.
I would have so much fun with that.
Yeah, that sounds like Parker's ideal item.
Or like a quiver that gave me different arrows for notes I sing. That would be
Yes.
Ooh.
Certifiable Nerd says, what was one of the most epic portions of a game that you've played? Slayed a dragon in a cool way, convinced a big bad to step down, etc. What's one of the epic moments?
Epic moments. Yeah, epic moments. So my players decided, not my players, one of my players decided that it was a good idea to double cross a demon that who like legitimately was helping them. Just straight up helping them, but because his character backstory just hated demons, he just killed the demon outright. So it was a Cambion. So that demon's dad was Grisat. So Grisat literally breaks through, or actually, he technically uses an avatar form of himself. So he's not actually going anywhere, but he uses an avatar form that's like 14 feet high, and he breaks into this town and just starts wrecking havoc. Because, like I said, I like my players to have consequences to their actions. Nobody died, and what ended up happening was this lance that they had got, or this spear that they had gotten from the runaway demon, the runaway Cambion, had an ability in it where if somebody were to use that weapon against Grisat, they figured this out, which I was very impressed by. Then Grisat would be like the avatar would be dispelled,
Really?
and the spear would disappear. So I saw this player like think about it for a second, because their weapons obviously weren't doing jack squat to this like CR 17 creature. They were level 3.
Oh God.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I had other people there helping them, like other members of the town helping them, but it was definitely a very tense, like epic, big moment.
That's
where
cool.
this 14-foot tall avatar of Grisat is just wreaking havoc on this town that they're supposed to be protecting. But it happened because of their actions, and they knew it.
Azure asked, is there another creator you're most excited to work with in the future?
Absolutely. I love working with artists. And because I'm not an artist, I'm not like
I feel that.
I'm not a visual artist. So I love working with artists. There's quite a few of them that I follow and really like. I love. I don't know if anybody follows Chrisabug. She has some of this like the most amazing artwork. Just it's like almost this Disney style, but it's a very it's like a I don't know. It's she has a style all her own. It's a very like grown up style, but it's also very whimsical. So I absolutely love her art. I just think it's so cool. So I'd love to work with her someday.
That's awesome. And we're past our hour mark now.
Oh, oops.
So it's time to show your amazing work to everybody. I'll start. We'll look.
Bim.
So here's Bim's. I've gone with a much darker palette for him, and you'll have to excuse me. The shade is still drying on him. And I'm going to bring it all back out later. Oh my god, I can't get it to focus. But I'm pretty happy with him, honestly. He's looking really good. He's looking very, very... God, he doesn't look good at all in that shot. But I'll send a picture to you later.
Post it in Discord.
Yeah, we'll put it on Discord. But he's looking good. I'm real happy with him, honestly.
It's cute.
Yeah, Bimsy. Okay.
Good job. So again, I kind of went with a kind of a blue here. I don't know if you can tell.
Oh,
Hard to see in
we've
there.
got lag coming in. It's not. Oh, there it is. Beautiful perfection.
There it goes.
Oh, it looks good.
So there we go. So she's got
Ooh.
kind of got the skin tones on there. I've got kind of a bluish. I still need to do some more layers, and I got kids crying in the background. You're right, that
no.
hour mark
It's perfect.
has hit us.
I love that she's not
yeah.
wearing shoes. That's Bala. That's
Monks
a good
don't
choice.
need shoes.
Shoes are for the weak. Excellent. Oh, so good. Parker, what about you? Oh my god, he looks so
Ooh.
good.
Kind of green.
I know,
It
right?
won't focus.
We need to get everybody cameras for this, like desk cameras, like Snap has.
For
So
sure.
Small and cute.
Oh, he looks so good.
So cute.
My gosh.
I did dry brushing and
Oh my god.
flashlights and things.
You're killing me. You're so good. Well, okay.
Learning.
Weston, thank you. It's been a delight.
It was so much fun. Thanks for having me.
You're an inspiration, and thank you for doing so much for our community. One more time, tell us all about your Patreon and your podcasts and where to find you.
So the best places to find me are going to be obviously TikTok, Instagram. Those are really where I post most often. I also post quite a bit on Twitter, and I have a couple videos up on YouTube. But really, it's on Patreon that you're going to see all the stuff that I'm up to. Feel free to shoot me a message. I pretty much always find time to respond to my messages, even if it takes a little while. Because again, I like connecting with people. I'm sure at some point that's going to become more difficult, but in my Patreon, that's really where we can connect. In my Discord, don't like if you want to support me, but you can't support me. That's totally fine. Using my music supports me. Showing it off to your people on your stream, or shouting me out in your home games or whatever it might be. That is helping me. And maybe those people will then take that music and pop over to my page and they can donate. Again, I love doing this, and I'm going to continue doing this. The more support I get, the more time I can spend doing it, because I have a wife and 3 kids and all that stuff, and I'm trying to support them and doing my best to do that. But in the meantime, please head over to Spotify or Apple Music and download Arcaneanthems Volume 1. And again, thanks so much for having me. It's an absolute blast to be on here. Thank you.
Thanks, man. You're the best. And bye, everybody. We'll see you soon. Bye.